Now tell me, what brings you to New Zealand?
Okay, well, a mixture of things actually bring me to New Zealand. The main thing is I have just been in Samoa and spent a few weeks there. I studied in Samoa for 5 years and taught at the National University there. I did my doctorate in Samoa. So I was in Samoa doing some follow-up postdoctoral work in Samoa. So I've been there and was coming through New Zealand on my way back home to Scotland, and actually met with the Auckland Interfaith group last night.
Tell me about your doctorate work in Samoa. What were you studying in Samoa?
Well, what first took me to Samoa was my master's thesis, which was a study of the Baha'is of Samoa and Tonga and their impact on the local culture. And it was doing that master's thesis that I first became aware of the incredible role that women play in religion in the Pacific. And it made me think, well, I wonder if this is the case really worldwide, but it certainly was true of Indigenous women and certainly was true of Samoan women. So from that master's thesis, I went on to do my PhD, which has got a long, convoluted title as PhDs have, but it was basically Empowerment and Constraint, the cultural legacy of Indigenous and colonial religion and its impact on women in Samoa. So I looked at pre-Christian religion and what was still left of it, what was still practiced in Samoa and the role that women play in that. I looked at the mainline traditions, which I've called the historic mainline traditions, which were Methodist, Catholic and Congregationalist. And that was the middle section of the thesis. And the final section was looking at newer religions in Samoa, so the Latter-day Saints, the Baha'is, and the more charismatic Christian groups, looking at their structures and their impact, and all of this focusing on women. And one of the things that emerged, I suppose, in the process of doing a study, of looking at something, you end up developing a theory or a theoretical stance. And one of the things that I felt very strongly about was I'd read a lot of feminist literature, a lot of literature about women, and I was quite disturbed by the fact that most feminist literature is very negative about the role that religion has played in women's lives, either that it's misogynist or that this kind of thing, the hierarchies are all male and etc. But my own experience of being a Baha'i, I actually found that religion was incredibly empowering to me and very, very liberating. And I knew as well from being in Samoa that the Samoan women are quite liberated by their religious experiences and play a key role in religion in Samoa. And so I thought there needed to be at least the beginning of a theory, or starting to look at a theory that would explore the positive aspects of religion in terms of women's advancement, as well as acknowledging that there have been structures that have been imposed on women in a religious context that are not necessarily empowering. So that's where the empowerment and constraint come in. It was looking at both aspects and sort of saying, well, where do we go from here?
Looking at the impact of religion on women's lives in Samoa, in a lot of the different religious communities in Samoa, Methodist, Congregationalist, Catholic, Baha'i, Mormon as well, the Latter-day Saints, and also charismatic Christians. So I looked at the role of women in all these different religious communities. Well, what I found was really fascinating, because I found that traditionally feminist theories of religion say that religion oppresses women. And I wanted to challenge that, because the first time I came to Samoa in 1995, I had felt that religion had really empowered women in Samoa, that they were very committed to their religion and that it gave them a lot of joy, a lot of meaning, a lot of purpose to their lives. And so I did find that there was a kind of a double-edged sword with religion, that some things were very empowering, but some of the structures, religious structures, could be constraining for women. Actually, in many ways, all religion, because it's about spirituality, offers empowerment for women. Obviously, as a Baha'i, I feel that we're really lucky in that the messenger of God for the Baha'is, Bahá'u'lláh, has actually said in Scripture quite categorically that men and women are equal in the eyes of God and always have been. But within Christianity and within all the traditions, spirituality is empowering for women.
My overall conclusion was that I felt that it was the structures that had evolved over centuries that had become, because it was a male-dominated society until quite recently, that constrained women, whereas the actual religious message and the attitude of service and things that women developed were incredibly empowering to women, so that religion did have this two-sided coin of structural constraint that needs to be explored, because structures are man-made, they're created by people. And man-made is probably true in a historic sense. Most structures are man-made. But that you can never take away from the power of religion in women's lives, and the, you know, the charismatic founders of religious traditions, and you know, the relationship they'll have with God through their religion and with their families and with their churches and with their society. All incredibly empowering stuff. So I found, you know, that was my conclusion. Mostly the structures that were constraining, and the message itself was very empowering.
So it seems to be implied in what you've had to say that women are increasingly taking leadership roles in various aspects of their religious lives and their community lives. Is that something you can see in Samoa?
Yes, gradually. Yeah, definitely gradually. I mean, there are still areas that that Samoan women themselves are challenging. I mean, I think it's probably, I mean, you know, as someone, an outsider, I mean, I have to acknowledge I'm an outsider to Samoan society. I always try to work in partnership with Samoan women when we do papers or look at things together, because of course they understand their society and their constraints much, much better than I do. And so women have shared with me some of the things that have been constraining, but also some of the things that have been empowering. And I do sense that the 21st century will really and truly be a time when hopefully most of the world will have wakened up to the fact that men and women should have access to equal opportunities in all aspects of life. I mean, there's a Baha'i context, a Baha'i quote, if you like, that says that humanity is like two wings of a bird, and when both wings are fully developed, that the bird of humanity will fly. And if you have unequal development, you know, one very developed wing and one that's not getting the opportunity to develop, of course, you can have a bit of lopsided or no flight at all. So we really do need to explore, you know, that possibility that all women and men should have full opportunity to their full human development. You know, what's going to bring out that potential that makes us truly human, you know, that allows us to contribute to ourselves, to our families, to our society, to our lives, to the global community.